Okay, so Will Smith, right. We're going to try to unpack this whole thing.
All right.
And I think when you think about his career,
Yeah.
it's interesting because you've got these really distinct moments that kind of stick in your mind.
Yeah, definitely.
Like you think about Bad Boys and that sort of like, shirt undone swagger,
Right.
which apparently was like a total spur of the moment thing on set.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
But it became like this totally iconic image.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you've got the Oscars slap.
Right, a moment nobody's going to forget.
Yeah, which is like the complete opposite energy.
Completely different energy.
But it's like these two huge moments have really kind of shaped how we see him.
Absolutely.
So what we're trying to get into today is this question of, can his return to hip-hop?
Right.
Can that be like the next defining chapter?
Yeah, can he redefine himself again?
Exactly. And I think that's what's so fascinating.
It's really interesting.
Because he's stepping back into music after such a long time.
Yeah, and after, everything that's happened.
Exactly. And so what we're looking at today is,
Yeah.
We've got information on his new album based on a true story.
Okay.
And then this kind of unexpected UK tour announcement.
Interesting.
So we're trying to understand, like, what's the motivation behind this?
Yeah, why now?
Like, why now?
He's had such a successful film career.
Right. And what are people saying about it? What are the early responses?
Yeah, good questions.
So for all of you listening, whether you've been following his whole journey,
Yeah.
or you're just interested in how celebrities, kind of navigate these moments.
Yeah, how they come back.
And how public perception shifts.
Right.
We want to give you some context here.
It's a really good case study.
It is, because it's this whole intersection of fame and, creative expression.
Right, and how one event can just completely change the narrative.
Yeah. So let's get into it.
Okay, let's do it.
And I have to say, the first thing that kind of jumped out at me was the UK tour.
Okay.
It starts in Scarborough.
Scarborough?
Yes, Scarborough.
Wow, that's interesting.
And one of the sources we were looking at was like, boom, shake, 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 Scarborough. Doesn't quite have the same ring to it,
It doesn't roll off the tongue the same way.
It doesn't.
As some of his other hits.
No. But, Scarborough Open Air Theater, it's a well-established venue.
Yeah.
But this idea of this, huge global superstar
Right.
going to this, coastal town.
Yeah.
It feels very deliberate. Like,
It makes you think about the strategy behind it, for sure.
Yeah.
Like, are they trying to kind of, start somewhere a little bit more low-key?
yeah, outside of the,
The huge media
like
spotlight.
huge media hubs.
Right.
Yeah, so I think that's a really interesting choice.
Yeah, it sparks a lot of conversation, for sure.
It has.
Okay.
So let's talk about the music now.
Okay, yeah, let's get into the album.
So, based on a true story,
Okay.
it's his 5th solo album.
5th one, wow.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is he's positioning it as like the first in a trilogy.
Right. Like a trilogy of albums?
Yeah, he's even said it's like 3 seasons of a TV musical show.
Wow, okay.
So it seems like there's this kind of bigger narrative arc that he's going for.
Yeah, it's not just a one-off. It's like a whole project.
Exactly.
That's really interesting.
So it's 14 tracks.
Okay.
He's got Jack Ross on there, Tiana Taylor.
Oh, cool. Some guest appearances.
Yeah, and the album art is like a total throwback.
Oh, right.
Like that preppy Fresh Prince look.
Oh, wow.
So maybe he's trying to, connect back to that.
Yeah, like a more innocent time?
Yeah, like a more universally loved era.
Maybe, yeah.
Which kind of brings us to the big question, like, why now?
Why is he coming back to music now?
He's 56 years old.
Right.
He's an Oscar winner.
Yeah, he's got a hugely successful film career.
Like billions of dollars in box office.
Yeah, why music? Why now?
And he's been pretty quiet on the music front since 2005,
Right.
so why
No
not?
question.
One perspective we saw is that maybe the music industry is just a little bit more forgiving
Oh, interesting.
than Hollywood.
Yeah, maybe after the Oscars incident, he's looking for a space that's a little bit
Yeah.
more open to, people making mistakes.
Yeah, a little bit more lenient.
Yeah.
But, he has his own explanation,
Right.
which is that he's using songwriting to kind of process the post-slap trauma.
Oh, wow. So he's really trying to work through things.
Yeah, and he's also talking about this spiritual investigation.
A spiritual investigation.
Yeah, and he said it started when he was filming Emancipation,
Okay.
which, if you've seen the film, it's a very intense,
Really, that's a heavy film.
very heavy film.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And he said this spiritual investigation continued after the Oscars,
Okay.
and that this whole internal journey is what's informing the new album.
So it's really personal then?
Yeah, very personal.
Okay.
And you see it in the song titles, too, like Hard Times and You Can Make It.
Yeah, those are pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, very much in line with this kind of theme of
Of personal growth.
Personal growth and overcoming challenges.
Right.
And he even told Billboard, this whole well opened up, like this well of understanding of art and pain.
Wow.
And he said, after the Oscars, this spiritual investigation, it kind of intensified.
Okay.
And he started having dreams, visions, parts of my inner landscape.
Okay.
So one of the articles we read was kind of pointing out, like, this language sounds a little bit more like an aromatherapy clinic menu than like rap lyrics.
Uh-huh. It's a different vibe for sure.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see if that's going to resonate.
Yeah. Will hip-hop fans connect with that kind of language?
Right.
It's a good question.
And it's interesting because this introspective kind of tone, it carries over to the lead single, too.
Okay. What's the single called?
It's called Beautiful Scars.
Beautiful Scars.
Yeah. And it features Big Sean and Obonga.
Okay.
And it's been described as having this kind of old school hip-hop feel.
Okay. So maybe a little bit of a throwback.
Yeah, but also a little bit more edge than his previous hits.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah, and the message is all about finding strength in adversity.
Okay, so still kind of positive.
Yeah, he's even said, what seems like the worst thing can become one of the most magnificent experiences.
Wow, that's a powerful statement.
Yeah, and he actually coined a term, brutiful.
Brutiful? What's that?
He says it's like his post-slap existence, brutal and beautiful.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, that's like his new word.
That's pretty profound.
Yeah. And the music video for Beautiful Scars is really interesting.
Okay, what happens in the video?
So it starts off kind of playfully with Big Sean referencing career regrets.
Career regrets?
Like specifically the Oscars.
Oh, wow.
And passing on The Matrix.
Interesting.
And then they actually recreate scenes from The Matrix with Big Sean as Morpheus.
No way.
Yeah, offering the red and blue pills.
That's amazing.
It's so meta.
Yeah.
And Smith has even said, turning down The Matrix is one of his own beautiful scars.
Oh, wow. So he's really embracing that whole concept.
Yeah.
Of, learning from your mistakes and seeing the beauty and the imperfections.
Exactly. And he's also been talking a lot about kintsugi.
Kintsugi, what's that?
It's this Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold.
Oh, I've heard of that.
So you emphasize the imperfections rather than hiding them.
Yeah, it's a beautiful concept.
It is. And he told Genius that he sees the Oscars incident as either this, like, horrible, terrible mess or a really great kintsugi opportunity to rebuild something beautiful and powerful.
Wow, that's a really powerful way to look at it.
Yeah, he's trying to reframe it.
He's not running from it. He's leaning into it.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
And then there's First Love.
Okay, tell me about that one.
It's his Valentine's Day duet with India Martinez.
Okay.
And the whole theme is about healing all enemies.
Okay.
But even this release had a little bit of controversy.
Oh, what happened?
So they kissed on stage during a performance in Miami. And, given everything with him and Jada.
Right, they're very public conversations about their relationship.
Yeah, and the fact that they admitted to being separated at one point, it definitely raised some eyebrows.
Yeah, it kind of makes you wonder what the intention was there.
Right. Oh. So when you listen to this new music, it's really different from the Will Smith we knew in the 90s.
It was back in the getting jiggy with it days.
Yeah, Miami, boom, shake the room.
Right. It was all very upbeat, very positive.
Yeah, it was all about having fun and feeling good.
Right.
Very relatable.
Yeah, everyone loved it.
And he never really got into any deep or controversial topics.
Yeah.
But this new stuff, it's like...
It's heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy. It's weighted down with all this...
With all this baggage.
Yeah, with all this, like, spiritual torment.
Right.
And so it's interesting because that earlier image of, like, effortless charm and positivity...
Right.
That's what made him so successful.
Yeah, everyone loved that Will Smith.
So it's a big risk to kind of move away from that.
Yeah, he's potentially alienating a lot of fans who connected with that earlier persona.
Right, and who might not be looking for this kind of...
This heavier, more introspective stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's a gamble.
It is, and then, of course, there's the whole question of
yeah,
what's happening with his Hollywood career.
Right, because the Oscars incident definitely had an impact.
Yeah, we were reading about Sharon Waxman.
Oh, yeah, she's the editor-in-chief of The Wrap, right?
Yeah, and she said, it's kind of crazy to think that this one incident could wipe away so many decades of goodwill.
Wow. Yeah, it's kind of amazing how one moment can just change everything.
Yeah, she called it a stunning act of narcissism.
Wow.
And that it really tarnished his image.
Yeah, that's a strong statement.
It is.
So what's the current status of his film career then?
Well, it's complicated. Complicated how?
So, Bad Boys. Ride or Die.
Yeah.
Did really well at the box office.
Oh, okay.
So some people are seeing that as a comeback.
Like he's back. Yeah. But then you look at his future projects and they seem kind of thin on the ground.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's talk of sequels to I Am Legend and Hancock.
Okay.
But nothing concrete yet.
So it's kind of up in the air.
Yeah. And one article called him Schrodinger's A-lister.
Schrodinger's A-lister? What did that even mean?
Like he's simultaneously canceled and not...
Oh, wow. So he's in this weird limbo.
Yeah.
Where he's got this huge past success.
Yeah.
But he's also got this big incident hanging over him.
Right.
And people don't know whether to embrace him or to kind of distance themselves.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
It is. And so it kind of all comes back to this music comeback.
Yeah.
And how successful is it actually going to be? Because, you know, from what we've seen, it hasn't exactly set the world on fire yet.
Yeah, it hasn't been this huge, like, overnight success.
Right. And Tim Price.
Oh, yeah, the guy who does the Will Smith podcast.
Yeah, he was saying that a big challenge for Smith is going to be connecting with younger audiences.
Right, because they might not even be familiar with his older stuff.
Exactly. And this new album is so different.
Yeah, it's not as fun and lighthearted as his older music.
Right. It's more honest and raw.
Right.
And then there are people who are just straight up skeptical.
Like, they don't think it's going to be good.
Yeah, there was this one comment on Reddit that was like, just another generic album about struggling and making mistakes.
Yeah. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I think his performance in Scarborough in August, that's going to be really telling.
Yeah, that'll give us a better sense of how people are actually reacting to this new music.
Exactly.
Okay, so to wrap things up then.
Yeah, so we've looked at Will Smith's attempt to kind of reignite his music career.
Yeah.
We talked about the UK tour and the kind of interesting choice of Scarborough as the starting point.
Right.
And then we got into the themes of the album.
Right, all the trauma and healing and...
Yeah, the kintsugi metaphor.
Right, and the change in his musical style.
Yeah, and then, of course, the whole question of, you know, where he stands in Hollywood.
Right, is he canceled? Is he not canceled?
Exactly.
It's really unclear.
Yeah, and I think the big takeaway is, will film's potential loss be hip-hop's gain?
Right, because if Hollywood doesn't want him, will the music industry embrace him?
And I think that's the question we all have to kind of ponder.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this all plays out.
Yeah, and for everyone listening, here's something to think about.
Okay.
You know, we've got these two very different images of Will Smith.
Yeah, the charismatic entertainer and the...
Right, and the guy who's working through some very public, personal issues.
Yeah, which Will Smith will resonate more with audiences going forward.
Right, and what does that say about us?
Right, what does that say about what we expect from celebrities?
Yeah, and the stories that we're willing to buy into.
That's a really good question.
I think so.
I'm going to be thinking about that for sure.
Me too.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us today, everyone.
Thanks for listening.
And we'll see you next time on The Deep Dive.
Bye.